Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for coming from all the locals from Cebu, from also our participants from Tacloban and Ormoc, most especially those who came from different places around the world. I really appreciate your presence here. Thank you very much. I'm here to complement the talk that was delivered by Noel. What I love about the Bitcoin Cash community is, although we are united in our mission, we come from very diverse backgrounds. And so we have very diverse and rich perspectives on how we can attain the Bitcoin Cash mission, as was explained by Noel. As an introduction, while they're preparing the slides, so this is, of course, my personal perspective about how we can reach the same goals of Bitcoin Cash. And this is the same perspective, mindset, and the same strategy that we've been adopting for Paytaca and for all the startups and businesses that we support here in the Philippines. So I entitled this Value Creation is How We Will Win. It's clear that we want the world to transition to a sound money, a digital sound money. And how can we make that happen? That's everybody's question. How can we make that happen? How can we realize that dream of the world adopting digital sound money, specifically Bitcoin Cash? Well, I see there are at least 3 ways we can do that. Either we wait for the US dollar to collapse, and many people, some people I know really do believe this. We just have to wait for it to collapse and then Bitcoin Cash will be adopted, right? I've read this somewhere in many messages in Telegram. That might be true. I'm not saying that it's not gonna happen. The second is we influence or we lobby or we somehow do what's possible in order to let the government notice the currency and then adopt it as legal tender. And there's been a lot of work that's done on this front, and I saw from Noel's presentation that this is like one of the things that he wants to happen in Australia, and that's very good. It's good to know that there are people who are like going through that path. The third thing is by creating value, so much value for the people, undeniable, compelling value. So we create massive value. And I'd like to qualify what I mean here by value. So value means that we cater to the human needs and wants of the target market. So our target market is basically everyone. So we have to know their goals. What do they want? What do they need? And then we have to make it faster, cheaper, or safer, or some new ways to achieve those goals. And so when I say value, it means that we have tangible impact in the lives of people. And how do you do that? By creating products. Products that people will use, that will make their lives easier, that will make their work more efficient, cost and time-wise. And these products are using Bitcoin Cash, the whole stack. There's another presentation later that will present that Bitcoin Cash is not just money. In fact, you can create different assets to represent like physical assets. And you can use the advanced programmability of Bitcoin Cash to manage these assets on chain. So that will be expounded later on by Ron, the talk of Ron. So what I'm saying is, the third approach, creating so much value, so much undeniable value for people, means that we put out there different products that address different needs of our target market. So in a way, by this frame of mind, by this thinking, adoption it doesn't become your primary goal. Value creation is the goal. We should seek to create value. And adoption becomes the consequence of that. So that's the overall strategy. We create so much value. I'm a reader of Sun Tzu's Art of War, and in the book he makes differentiation between strategy and tactic. So your strategy is like how you will make it happen in general. And then tactics are like the specific actions to implement that will lead to your overall strategy. Okay? So I would think, and I believe it's a reasonable position, that as an overall strategy, Bitcoin Cash should be seeking to create so much value for the target market, but the tactics will be different in every setting. It will be different in Argentina, it will be different in the Philippines, in St. Kitts, in many other places who would like to replicate what we are doing. The tactics will be different. And every company will probably come up with their own tactics in order to execute and arrive at that strategy of creating value. So one tactical principle. Okay, so I'll list down some of the tactics that we are adopting here in Paytaca and in our work in the Philippines, which could also apply also in other places, but it doesn't have to be. It could be different. So one thing is focus. So as Noel mentioned earlier, he's been asked, why are you ignoring all these other coins? Because of focus. Because we don't have a lot of resources, especially in Bitcoin Cash. All the capital has went to centralized systems, exchanges, stable coins. We almost don't have money, right? I mean, in comparison, we have money, of course. We were able to organize this conference after all. But most of the capital went to centralized exchanges. Binance, OKX, BitMEX, and this last one has closed, apparently. But anyway, that's another story. Because we have limited resources, we have to stay focused. Otherwise, we'll be misallocating our resources, our limited resources. So when people ask me, why is Paytaca so focused on Bitcoin Cash? Why don't you put Solana there? Okay, I'm gonna drop the names. Why don't you put Solana there, Ethereum, and all the other 30,000 cryptocurrencies? Why? And I find it hard to really get this message across to people. And for us, it's simply because we are not here to present these options to the people that you have 30,000 options to pay for your coffee. No. We are here to juxtapose, to compare between fiat currency and crypto. And most of our target market, 90% plus of them, haven't encountered crypto. Maybe they've heard, but they haven't experienced it. So imagine somebody, a common man somewhere, you're talking to them. You know what? We have this better money system. You can use this wallet. You can choose from 30,000 cryptocurrencies in our wallet. We support all of them. And then this common man will say, I don't even know what cryptocurrency is. So you just created confusion, right, in your first attempt to onboard that person. So it's not just focus here, it's not just about managing our limited resources to fund this adoption, this product development. It's also about confusing your user. Okay? At Paytaca, at least, what we want to do is to have our target users experience the fiat currency on one hand and crypto. Focus on Bitcoin Cash. Because that's what they need to see. They don't need to see, like, for someone who doesn't know crypto, they don't need to see that it's better, Solana is better than BCH. Oh, but Ethereum is super, it's ultra sound money. So we don't need to make that comparison for most people that we will approach. We need them to experience that Bitcoin Cash is better versus fiat currency. So focus. The other tactical principle that we are adopting is building the ecosystem. So we could have stopped in creating a wallet, and there you go, we have a wallet, use it however you want it. But the wallet in isolation is going to be, it's gonna fall. It's like you're trying to build a chair. You should have at least three legs, right? But we are building more than a chair. We are building an ecosystem. So we need to approach them at different layers, right? So if you are trying, for example, to reforest a barren land, you don't just put a tree there. Especially if, like in the Philippines, there's nobody else doing peer-to-peer electronic cash. Paytaca is unique, at least in the Philippines, in advancing the use of Bitcoin Cash, of peer-to-peer money. So what does that leave you? It's like a barren land. You don't just put a tree there and then expect the birds and the grasses to come, right? No, nobody, yeah, if you want to make that happen, you put the tree, but you better be prepared to build the whole, to reforest the system. And you don't just plant the tree there. So as you can see, most of the showcase presentations here are actually like different products we are trying to put out there. Because we want to create the ecosystem. The land is so barren, we need to create the whole ecosystem. And it's important because you actually get to involve different stakeholders. And then if you can build this like really well, they will seed with each other. They will cross-pollinate. Okay? It's hard to do if you're just building like one tree, one species. The different species, they have to like species diversity and they cross-pollinate. So you've got to build this whole ecosystem. It's hard. Actually, I don't want to be in the position to do that, but nobody else is doing that, so what can we do? The other tactical principle is balance. The challenging thing about what we're doing here is we want to build the demand and also the supply, because both of them don't exist, at least when we started. So we onboard merchants, but that's just one part of the balance, right? We need customers as well to pay in these merchants. So we've got to build the supply side, and because of the way it works, when we onboard merchants, the merchants usually are patient. They can wait, or maybe we're just lucky to have merchants who are patient, and we say we can onboard you now, and then we will bring in the customers. Okay, so it doesn't have to be like they say it's a chicken and egg problem, which is kind of correct. And What I remember in one of the talks that Aaron and I attended, somebody mentioned that if you have a chicken and egg problem, what you need is a rooster. That's how you solve the chicken and egg problem. So our rooster moment is you onboard first your friends. In Tacloban, we are very lucky to be supported by merchants who believe in what we do, but not necessarily seeing immediately the customers coming in to buy. So they just keep there. We accept Bitcoin Cash through Paytaca there. It's lying there. One transaction a week, one transaction a month, doesn't matter. Of course, you will encounter merchants who are like, oh, but how many customers can you bring tomorrow? Okay, then you know this is not the right merchant to approach at this point in time. So, yeah, but the point is, we need to grow both sides, the supply and the demand side. Another tactical principle we adopt is people first. We need to observe what people experience in terms of like pain points, what do they struggle with, and then figure out how we can solve them. Again, using Bitcoin Cash, of course. And this is something that we've done very early. I'm a kind of builder who is, I'm fine with a not so perfect product. Okay, so just ship it and then let them use it. And then we get feedback immediately. Oh, Joemar, this doesn't look good. Yeah, I know. We're working on it. And I've got a lot of that feedback. For me, I'm not saddened by these comments. I take it as a feedback. Okay? So we've got to reach people first. Don't perfect the product in your mind, because it will never be perfect. Software is always work in progress. So you get your product out there, feel if that's a solution, that you're really solving a pain point. And if not, how can you tweak these products? So up until this point, I'm talking about how we can create value to our target users, to the target market. But this is just one side of the equation, because how are we going to create a lot of products that create value for people? We need resources, capital. Although in the Bitcoin Cash community, there is a healthy attitude towards donating. So people are willing to support those who are creating so much value for the target market. But this is not sustainable. So we need to create value for our investors as well. So we create value for our customers, make sure that we capture part of that value as a return of investment. So we make our investors happy, right? Otherwise, you're tipping off the balance. You're not gonna be able to sustain creating these great, amazing products and push it to the market without making your investors or financial backers happy. So value creation goes both ways. Create value for your target customers and create value for your investors. But as I said, Bitcoin Cash, many projects in Bitcoin Cash get funded through donation. And to be fair, I'm not saying that all of us who are involved in this mission should be entrepreneurial. No, it's not the case. Because there's a lot of work to be done out there that are not necessarily like entrepreneurial in nature. So you can compare that to the internet. Like when the internet was invented, well, there was a lot of companies who used the internet to create amazing products. Google, Amazon, and Alibaba. They used the internet. Like it's an analogy that of the Bitcoin Cash stack. You can use it to create great products. But there are also open source developers who support themselves or they get supported by donations. So both of these are working funding model. But there should be at least enough of us, not one, but I don't give the number, but there must be enough of us who will turn out to be immensely profitable. So there has to be huge enterprise that will come out of it. Not one, but many, preferably, so that we can make our investors happy. And not just that, it's not as if we are working for their happiness, it's for the sustainability of the whole system. So, in order to make this whole thing work, we need the donations, we need profitable businesses to thrive so that we can hire more people or power up your AI. You buy a lot of GPU servers, you build better products, you expand new markets and invest in R&D. So that the capital that is provided by the investors, we're able to generate return for them while we are creating value for our target market. So it creates this virtuous cycle where we solve human problems with Bitcoin Cash, we create network value, we generate profit, and also the one side effect of this is we attract more investors by doing that. And then we're able to hire more or deploy more GPU resources to build your products in order to solve another set of human problems. And so it becomes a virtuous cycle. So I'm beginning to think that the wrong question to ask is what can we do to get more people to use Bitcoin Cash? That's how I used to frame the question. But given how many years we have worked here, since 2018 when we started coding the wallet, 2022 when we launched the wallet, so we have learned a lot of things. One of it is to ask the right question. What valuable problem can we solve using Bitcoin Cash? And so we encourage everyone who are working in Bitcoin Cash to ask that question. How can we create a lot of value to our target market, to the people? And then adoption will follow. And value not just to the market, but also to our financial backers, the investors, and the greater Bitcoin Cash community in general. So that concludes my talk. Again, I thank you everyone for listening, for your time, for coming over.